Imagine this scenario for a moment. You've spent years building a company.
Right.
You've poured like every ounce of your energy, your reputation, your finances into making it work.
Oh, yeah.
And then in a single month, you lose over 1.3 million US dollars.
Just completely devastating.
It really is. I mean, you find yourself standing in a room physically weeping in front of 80 employees as you just systematically fire them because money is simply gone.
Yeah, that is a staggering cognitive dissonance for most people to even try to process.
Exactly. But imagine walking out of that room, wiping your face, and realizing that this catastrophic moment is actually the defining hallmark of a highly successful life.
Right, because we are so conditioned to view a moment like that as the ultimate endpoint, like the definitive proof that we have just failed the game of life.
But the reality of building a meaningful life is that the landscape is incredibly murky. I mean, we're told to expect this binary visible diagnosis for all our choices.
Yes, you achieve the goal, you feel happy.
Right. You follow the societal template, you get the reward. But then you step into the actual reality of living, and you realize that following the template often leaves you feeling completely hollow.
It really does. You can check every single box you were told to check and still walk around feeling like you have a broken bone.
And society acts like that faulty X-ray machine. It points to your degree, your salary, or your marital status and says, well, look, everything is perfect.
Yeah, you have nothing to complain about. It completely ignores those internal invisible fractures.
So today, we are going to explore a blueprint for recognizing and healing those fractures. Welcome to this deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Our source material today is a book called Do Epic Shit by Ankur Warikoo. If you spend any time in the digital business space, you know his footprint is massive.
Oh, absolutely massive. He's an entrepreneur and content creator with over 60 million views across his platforms.
But he makes this really bold claim, right in the introduction of his book. He actually warns the reader that this might be the most useless book they ever purchase.
I mean, that is certainly one way to filter your audience right out of the gate, right?
Seriously. But he argues it's useless because it doesn't actually teach you a single brand new concept.
It's not promising some hidden esoteric secret to the universe.
Exactly. Instead, he wrote it to put concrete vocabulary to the fleeting feelings, the anxieties, and the quiet thoughts that you already have, but, rarely stop to actually interrogate.
And he structures this exploration around several core themes: the true nature of success, the architecture of habits, self-awareness.
The brutal realities of entrepreneurship, yeah.
Right, and the mechanics of money. And finally, the complex web of our relationships.
So our mission today is to completely deconstruct all of these themes. That way you can stop coasting on the default settings of your life and really start operating from a place of deep, intentional awareness.
And the methodology he suggests for reading this book is quite revealing of his overall philosophy.
Oh, the book cricket thing.
Yeah, he likens the reading experience to playing a game of book cricket.
Which is such a fun concept.
It is. For anyone unfamiliar, it's this game often played by kids in India, where you open a book to a completely random page, and the page number determines your score for that turn.
So you don't read it cover to cover.
Exactly. You just open it randomly to score a moment of reflection.
So we are going to play the ultimate high-stakes game of book cricket today. We'll connect all those random reflections into a cohesive roadmap.
I love that.
But before we can talk about building a successful life, we really have to aggressively tear down the old house.
We have to deconstruct what society told you success is.
Right, and more importantly, we have to look closely at the failures that actually pave the way.
Because the social conditioning around success is just relentless. Warikoo points out that the world is this constantly shifting goalpost designed to keep you feeling inadequate.
The examples he gives are infuriatingly accurate. I mean, the world tells you that getting a stable job is a success.
But the moment you secure that job, if it pays even slightly less than what your neighbor or your college roommate is making,
suddenly you're categorized as a failure.
Exactly. Or society says getting married by 25 is a massive success. But if you find yourself divorced by 30, you're stamped with the failure label again.
It's this exhausting pendulum. So Warikoo puts forward a totally different metric. He says success is entirely about the relationship you have with yourself.
Right. If you stay true to your own internal rules, it simply does not matter if the world thinks you are failing.
And conversely, if you betray your own values, the loudest applause in the world will not cure your imposter syndrome.
What gives this philosophy so much weight is that he doesn't preach it from some theoretical ivory tower of unbroken victories.
Yeah, not at all. He introduces something he calls his failure resume.
Yeah, he lays out in excruciating public detail a timeline of rejection that is honestly staggering, especially for someone who's now viewed as a titan of his industry.
Let's actually examine the mechanics of that failure resume, because it forces us to confront how we process rejection.
He starts with his adolescence, right?
Yeah.
His ultimate dream was to get into the IITs, the Indian Institutes of Technology.
Right, and for context, these are essentially the Ivy League engineering schools of India, but with an acceptance rate that makes Harvard look like a community college.
The pressure on middle-class students to get in is just immense. So he tries in the 12th grade and is flatly rejected.
And he notes that this was the very first time he ever saw his father cry.
I mean, stop and consider the psychological weight of that moment for a teenager. You haven't just failed a test.
You perceive that you failed your bloodline.
Exactly. The societal mechanism in play here equates academic achievement directly with family honor and future financial survival.
So he tries again in his first year of college, rejected again. He pivots and applies to St. Stephen's, another highly prestigious institution, for a degree in physics.
And he gets to the interview stage, and a professor looks him in the eye and literally tells him, "I don't think you will be good in physics."
That is brutal. That kind of localized, authoritative rejection can completely rewrite a young person's internal narrative.
Oh, absolutely. When an expert tells you that you lack the fundamental capacity for your chosen field, the easiest thing to do is to internalize that as an absolute truth and just surrender.
But he doesn't surrender. He finishes college and tries to get into the IITs for his master's degree.
He manages to get an interview at one of the campuses, and a renowned professor asks him a technical question.
And Warikoo realizes he doesn't even know how to begin forming the answer.
So he apologizes, stands up, and just walks out of the room.
Wow. And the cascade of failure just continues from there. I mean, he applies to 7 universities in the United States for a PhD in physics. Princeton is his ultimate dream.
6 of them reject him.
Right, and he goes to the one university that accepts him, but eventually realizes it's just not his path.
Yeah. So he drops out, returning to India at age 24 with zero money, no plan, and no direction.
And the transition from the academic world to the corporate world offers no relief either.
No, he tries to get into the IIMs, the premier business schools in India, and fails the interview shortlist.
When he finally gets into a different business school and applies to all the top consulting firms, he faces a massive wall of rejection.
But eventually, he lands an interview with the Boston Consulting Group,
which is notorious for its rigorous case study interviews.
Oh, incredibly rigorous. And at the end of the grueling session, the interviewer asks him to rate his own performance on a scale of 1 to 5.
Warikoo rates himself a 2.
And the interviewer calmly agrees with him.
I mean, that is a brutal level of self-awareness being validated in real time.
It really is.
But the failures bleed right into his entrepreneurial life, too. He joins a startup with a co-founder. By his own admission, his ego runs wild.
He refuses to admit mistakes. He actively avoids seeking feedback.
And the inevitable result is that his own co-founder fires him.
Wow. And later, he starts his own company nearby. He launches a massive customer referral program but fails to put the proper checks and balances in place.
Right, and that single oversight results in a loss of over $1.3 million in a single month.
Which leads to the moment we opened the show with, standing in front of his company, crying as he lays off 80 people.
He maxes out credit cards, borrows from friends, has to put his parents' house up as collateral just to fund his sister's wedding.
He even sells his wife's gold bangles to buy his son a bicycle.
There's this particularly haunting detail he shares about this period. He looks at a family portrait drawn by his 6-year-old son.
Yeah, and in the drawing, the father is holding a smartphone.
Because that was the only way the child ever perceived him, Constantly distracted, constantly fighting professional fires.
That isn't just a financial failure. That is a fundamental failure of presence.
It is. So he takes all of this trauma and organizes it by decade, which actually reveals a fascinating shift in the nature of his mistakes.
Right. If we look at his 20s, the mistakes are almost entirely driven by a desperate need for external validation.
He pursued higher education not out of a genuine love for the daily grind of physics, but because he was naturally good at it, and it garnered praise.
He even read heavy intellectual books solely to project an image of being cool.
It's the trap of performing your life rather than living it.
Exactly. He also mentions feeling morally obligated to fix everyone around him who was in distress, and then internalizing the blame if they remained unhappy.
That is classic people-pleasing behavior, stemming from a belief that your worth is tied to your utility to others.
He even funded his lifestyle with debt, operating on the dangerous assumption that future success would inevitably foot the bill for today's insecurity.
The quote he uses here is a sharp dose of reality. He says, if you do not have the money to pay for something right now, you do not have the money.
But as we move into his 30s, the flavor of the mistakes completely changes.
They shift from personal identity crises to structural leadership-based failures.
Right, he talks about hiring people based purely on their pedigree, the brand names on their resumes, while completely ignoring their behavioral traits or how they actually operated as humans.
And he managed his entire team the exact same way, assuming everyone was motivated by what motivated him.
That is a massive failure of scaling leadership.
He also fundamentally misunderstood the ecosystem he was playing in. He assumed venture capitalists were like benevolent partners there to patiently build long-term businesses.
He had to learn the hard way that venture capital is a financial mechanism designed to enter a business, artificially inflate its valuation through rapid growth, and exit for a multiple.
And his perspective on layoffs was totally detached from human reality. He thought laying people off was just a logistical puzzle of finding them another job.
Completely missing the psychological devastation it causes to a person's self-respect.
Okay, wait, I need to challenge the core premise of this whole failure resume concept.
Go for it.
A traditional resume is essentially a manicured lawn. It's a highly curated highlight reel. If we swing the pendulum the other way and start publicly broadcasting every time we ruin a project or get fired, does society actually reward that?
That's a very fair question.
Right. Or does celebrating failure give people a psychological out? Does it create a culture where mediocrity is excused because, hey, failing is just part of the journey now?
That is the real danger of misinterpreting the concept. Warikoo is very careful not to glorify failure for the sake of failing.
Okay.
He explicitly warns the reader, don't wish for more scars. You should not be aiming to steer the ship into the rocks just to prove you are an explorer.
I see. So it's about the mechanism of resilience, not lowering the bar.
Precisely. He views his scars not as preemptive excuses for poor performance, but as objective markers of battles that were actually fought.
Right.
If you have no scars, it means you have never tested your own limits. He writes that scars are a reminder of who you were and who you can be. It's about destigmatizing the awkward, often painful process of acquiring competence.
How does that translate practically, though? Like, for a listener who's trying to figure out if they are just failing or if they're actually growing.
It connects to how he defines a professional. A pro, in Warikoo's eyes, is simply an amateur who chose to show up every single day.
A pro is not a mythical creature who never makes a mistake.
Exactly. A pro is the person who fell in love with the boring mechanics of the process. They chose the discipline of practice over the comfort of binge-watching television.
They persisted when the data suggested nothing was working.
So a long failure resume does not mean you get to stop trying. It is empirical proof that you are in the arena gathering data and surviving to deploy that data tomorrow.
That makes a lot of sense. The failure resume proves you are driving the car, even if you bump into a few guardrails.
Right.
But if defining success on your own terms is the destination, then your daily habits are the engine of that car. We are moving from the macro philosophy of how to view a decade down to the micro execution of a single Tuesday afternoon.
And Warikoo has a highly polarizing view on this transition. He passionately argues against setting goals.
Which flies in the face of every corporate productivity seminar ever conducted. Why does he view goals as destructive?
He focuses on the psychological aftermath of achievement. If you construct your life around hitting a specific target, a revenue number, a weight loss metric, a job title, you invariably feel a profound sense of hollowness the moment you achieve it.
You hit the peak, look around, and think, now what?
Exactly. And the only solution society offers is to immediately set a slightly higher, more stressful target.
The classic hedonic treadmill.
Yes. He writes, habits build us, goals lay us barren. Consider the mechanism of identity. If your goal is just to finish a marathon, you might hate every second of the training, force yourself across the finish line, and then never run again.
But if you focus on the habit of running daily, you are fundamentally altering your identity. You become a runner.
The irony is, the more you refine the habit, the closer you get to those targets anyway. but without the psychological whiplash. Habits hire you for a lifetime. Targets tame you and discard you.
Let's dissect his specific daily routines, because some of them run completely counter to the hustle culture playbook.
Oh, definitely.
Take waking up early. The internet is littered with gurus telling you that success begins at 4:30 in the morning. Or Warikoo says waking up early is irrelevant. Any alarm clock can jolt you awake. The actual biological trick is sleeping on time.
That is a fundamental misunderstanding of circadian rhythms by the hustle culture. If you force yourself awake at 5 in the morning but you went to bed at 1, you are operating with severe cognitive impairment.
You will hate yourself and your decision-making will suffer.
Warikoo optimizes for the mechanism of rest, not the theater of early rising.
He also relies heavily on outsourcing his memory. He carries a notebook everywhere and maintains 3 distinct ledgers: ideas, to-do lists for the current day, and meeting notes.
The underlying philosophy is that the human brain's energy is a finite resource, and it should be spent on synthesizing ideas, not functioning as a flawed storage drive for errands.
He even goes as far as scheduling emails to his future self to ensure he doesn't forget priorities.
His use of technology to organize his life is fascinating. He leverages WhatsApp, a messaging app, as a personal database. Oh, I loved this part. Yeah, he'll create a group chat with someone, immediately kick the other person out, and pin the solo group to the top of his feed.
He has one called Docs and Images, where he stores his national tax ID, his passport scans, and travel tickets so they are instantly searchable.
And he has another called Thoughts for Dumping Unrefined Ideas while he is in transit.
But the habit that feels the most luxurious and honestly the most controversial is his afternoon nap.
He is a fierce defender of the afternoon power nap. He credits his mother for the inspiration, as she rigidly protected an hour of sleep after lunch every day.
And later, traveling through China and South Korea, he observed entire office cultures that shut down midday to allow employees to rest.
Acknowledging the natural biological dip in energy. Now he blocks out an hour every afternoon to sleep, often with his young daughter.
But wait, if I'm working a standard corporate 9-to-5 job, I'm essentially renting my time to an employer. I cannot just curl up under my cubicle desk at 2 in the afternoon because my circadian rhythm dipped. How does a listener reconcile this incredibly bespoke CEO-level habit with the rigid reality of the modern workplace?
That is a critical distinction. It's easy to look at the nap and dismiss it as the privilege of the wealthy. But if you look deeper at the architecture of his day, Warikoo is talking about the extreme discipline required to purchase that luxury.
Oh, I see.
It's not just about deciding to sleep. It's about the hyper-organization that creates the vacuum of time where sleep is possible.
So the nap is the reward for the efficiency.
Precisely. He manages his calendar with absolute ruthlessness. He notes that over 50% of his waking hours are allocated to tasks that are highly important, but not urgent.
This is the Eisenhower matrix playing out in real life.
Exactly.
Most people spend their days reacting to things that are urgent but entirely unimportant, someone else's emergency.
Yes. By writing everything down, by automating reminders, by sharing a synchronized calendar with his wife, so logistical arguments about family duties are eliminated, he prevents his day from being consumed by friction.
He buys back his time.
And he offers a very confronting metric to test your own alignment. He says there are 3 things that reveal what you truly value: the first hour after you wake up, the last hour before you sleep, and your calendar.
If you claim that writing a novel is your highest priority, but your calendar shows you spending 4 hours every evening scrolling through social media, your calendar is telling the objective truth.
And your words are just a fantasy.
He ties this to what he calls the magic formula for navigating life and business, which is consistency plus authenticity.
If you are building a brand or just trying to navigate a career, you have to lean into who you actually are.
You can put up a facade for a month, maybe a year, but eventually the energy required to maintain the mask will just bankrupt you.
Which naturally leads us to the concept of self-awareness. Because you can have the most ruthlessly efficient habits in the world, but if you do not know who you are, you're just efficiently driving toward a destination you might hate.
Exactly. This brings us to the power of self-awareness and decision-making. Warikoo states that the core mission of his content empire isn't to entertain.
Right, it's to cultivate awareness so people can make better choices.
And he shares an insight about his own life that is incredibly relieving. Most of his massive life pivots were not made with supreme, unwavering confidence.
They were made from a hyper-awareness of his current situation.
We have this romanticized notion that successful people make decisions because they have a crystal ball.
We freeze because we're waiting for a guarantee of success before we quit a job or end a relationship.
Warikoo admits he had no idea if dropping out of his PhD program was the right choice. He wasn't sure if launching nearby would work.
But what he was absolutely certain of was that staying stagnant, remaining in a situation that was slowly draining his life force, was definitively the wrong choice.
Movement generates momentum, and momentum brings new data.
Stagnation just amplifies the sadness.
To help generate that movement, he provides a highly actionable 3-step framework for making terrifying decisions. Step 1. Ask yourself, what is the absolute worst thing that can happen?
Step 2. Close your eyes and vividly emotionally imagine that worst-case scenario becoming your reality.
And step 3, ask yourself objectively, if this happens, will I be okay mentally, socially, financially, physically, and emotionally?
If the answer is yes, you make the leap.
The mechanism here is fear deconstruction. Fear thrives in the abstract.
When you force your brain to actually map out the worst-case scenario, say losing your savings and having to move back into your parents' spare bedroom, you realize it's embarrassing and inconvenient, but it is rarely fatal.
Furthermore, he emphasizes that the vast majority of our decisions are entirely reversible.
We treat every career move like it's carved in stone.
We really do. But the moment you accept that you can quit the new job or move back to the old city, you remove the existential dread from the decision.
You stop obsessing over guaranteeing a specific outcome and start embracing the serendipity of the process.
But there's a massive trap he warns about when facing a crossroads. He writes, if unsure between two choices, picking both is almost always the wrong response.
It is the equivalent of trying to drive 2 cars at the same time.
You want the massive salary of an investment banker, but you also want the relaxed work-life balance of a freelance artist.
So you try to do both, and you end up exhausted, mediocre at both, and paralyzed by compromise.
You have to pick a lane, commit to the sacrifice required by that lane, and learn from it.
And making those hard choices often requires difficult conversations, which brings up one of the most profound observations in the entire book.
Oh, this one hit hard.
Yeah, Warikoo claims that emotional debt has killed more people than financial debt ever will.
I really want to spend some real time on this. What is the mechanism of emotional debt? How does it actually function in a person's life?
Think of it like deferred maintenance on a house. Financial debt is a known entity. You look at a spreadsheet, you see the negative number, you make a plan to pay it off.
Okay, that makes sense.
But emotional debt is the slow, invisible accumulation of avoided discomfort. It's the tiny leak in the roof that you ignore because calling the contractor is annoying.
It's the debt of knowing you need to break up with someone, but avoiding the conversation because you don't want to see them cry.
Exactly. It's the debt of staying in a career you despise because you're terrified of disappointing your parents.
And just like a leaking roof, the rot spreads.
Precisely. Every time you swallow your truth to avoid conflict, you take out a loan against your own soul.
Over years, that debt compounds. It manifests as chronic anxiety, as physical illness, as a midlife crisis where the entire ceiling caves in.
It slowly kills your capacity to feel joy.
He pierces right to the heart of this when he asks, whose life are we living?
Such a good question.
If our daily choices are dictated by an imaginary jury of our peers, if we go to parties we hate to impress people we don't like, or buy cars we can't afford to project an image of success, we aren't even the main character in our own lives.
We are just an extra in someone else's script.
The antidote to building this debt is changing how we communicate. Warikoo identifies ego as the primary roadblock to human connection.
We constantly assume we know what others are thinking or judging.
When someone is speaking to us, we often just nod to simulate listening, while our internal monologue is frantically drafting our counterargument.
We listen to reply, not to understand.
And his solution to the anxiety of assumption is maddeningly simple. Just ask.
If you think a colleague is mad at you, don't spend 3 days agonizing over their tone in an email. Walk up to them and ask.
It either validates your assumption so you can deal with it, or it immediately clears the air.
Taking that profound level of self-awareness and emotional regulation and applying it to the most volatile environment possible is what defines true entrepreneurship.
Let's transition into the professional arena then. Warikoo is incredibly blunt about the brutal realities of building a business. he establishes immediately that entrepreneurship is not a job title you print on a business card.
It is a fundamental state of mind.
You do not need to incorporate a company to be an entrepreneur. You can be a mid-level manager in a massive bureaucracy and still operate with an entrepreneurial mindset.
It means asking for responsibility beyond your narrow job description. It means actively hunting for inefficiencies to solve and treating the department's resources with the same respect you would treat your own bank account.
But if you were sitting in the founder's chair, the rules of leadership are harsh. He drops a truth bomb that I think a lot of modern, overly therapized corporate cultures don't want to hear.
Oh, this one is controversial.
He says people would much rather work for a competent asshole than an incompetent nice guy.
It sounds jarring, especially when we constantly preach about empathetic leadership. But if you look at the mechanism of a business, the primary goal of an employee is stability and growth.
A highly competent leader who lacks social graces will still ensure the product ships, the revenue comes in, and the paycheck's clear.
Exactly. An incredibly kind, sweet leader who cannot execute will eventually drive the company into bankruptcy, and all those happy employees will be unemployed.
Competence provides the foundation of security, but he aggressively nuances this point. He notes that while people will tolerate a competent jerk to survive in the short term, asshole founders don't build institutions. They merely start and run companies.
That is the ceiling of the dictatorial approach. If you manage purely through fear and extreme competence, you will experience massive turnover.
You'll never attract top-tier talent who have other options.
Right. To build an institution, a place that outlasts its founder, requires a completely different emotional toolkit. Warikoo offers a specific formula for institutional leadership: 90% empathy, 10% autocracy, and 100% patience.
He argues that the ultimate goal of a leader is to make themselves operationally dispensable, but culturally indispensable.
You should not be the only person who knows how to fix the server or balance the ledger, but you must be the unbreakable anchor for the company's vision and values.
Achieving that requires an immense degree of emotional regulation. He observes that the rarest skill in leadership is the ability to remain calm during an existential crisis.
When the servers crash or a major client pulls out, panic is contagious. Calmness does not mean a lack of urgency. It means harnessing that adrenaline and funneling it into methodical execution rather than chaotic reaction.
I want to look closely at a claim he makes about breaking into the business world. He says that when you're pitching a product or trying to acquire a customer, no one cares a frawing about who you are.
Yeah, he's very direct about that.
He claims the market doesn't care if the founder went to an IIT or if they have remortgaged their house to fund the prototype. But if we look at the reality of venture capital and elite networking, doesn't pedigree absolutely get your foot in the door?
That's a huge point of contention.
Isn't an Ivy League or IIT degree a massive, undeniable advantage in securing funding?
You are hitting on a crucial distinction between access and execution. Warikoo is well aware of his privilege. He openly admits he was incredibly lucky to be in the right rooms in his 20s.
Okay, so he acknowledges it.
Yes. Pedigree functions as a filter for access. An IIT degree on your resume will absolutely get a venture capitalist to open your email, whereas a cold email from an unknown founder might go straight to the trash. It buys you the initial meeting.
But it doesn't guarantee the outcome of the meeting.
Exactly. And more importantly, pedigree does absolutely nothing to solve the end user's problem.
When a customer downloads a food delivery app, they do not care what university the CEO attended.
They care about the mechanism of the app. Does the interface work? Is the payment secure? Does the food arrive hot? Pedigree buys attention, but only execution buys revenue.
That makes perfect sense. The resume gets you on the field.
Yeah.
You still have to play the game. And playing that game involves managing people through the darkest moments. We talked earlier about his realization regarding layoffs. When he had to let 80 people go at Nearby, his initial mindset was entirely logistical.
He thought his job as a leader was just to leverage his network and find them placement at other startups.
He fundamentally misunderstood the psychological trauma of being fired.
It is rarely about the logistics of the next paycheck. It's a catastrophic blow to a person's self-worth and identity.
Realizing this forced him to develop a much deeper empathy as a founder. It connects directly to one of his core hiring philosophies. Intent is greater than capability.
Let's break that down because most HR departments screen purely for capability.
Right. Imagine two engineers. Engineer A is a genius coder. Their capability is off the charts, but their intent is toxic. They hoard information, they belittle junior staff, and they only work on projects that elevate their own profile.
And then engineer B is average. They write decent code, but they require oversight. However, their intent is flawless.
They show up early, they mentor interns, they volunteer for the tedious debugging work, and they care deeply about the mission.
In a crisis, engineer A will abandon ship the moment a better offer comes along. Engineer B will stay late and help you bail water.
Capability can be taught through training modules. Intent is a fundamental character trait. You have to hire for intent.
Because at the end of the day, a founder has to show up regardless of the weather, regardless of the press, regardless of their own exhaustion.
And speaking of the fuel required to keep that engine running, we have to talk about capital. This brings us to a massive pillar of the book, unlearning the societal programming around money.
Warikoo's relationship with money is deeply informed by his childhood. He grew up in an environment of financial scarcity where his family lived hand to mouth and was constantly suffocating under the weight of debt.
When you grow up in that environment, money becomes the villain. He admits he grew up actively hating money, blaming it for the stress and arguments in his household.
His father actually recognized this and warned him. He told young Ankur that because he was raised without capital, he would eventually face a binary choice.
He would either spend his entire life relentlessly obsessing over acquiring it, or he would grow beyond the need for it.
The tragedy is that by viewing money as a necessary evil to be dismissed, he failed to respect its mechanics.
He didn't educate himself on how to manage, invest, or leverage it early on.
It was only later in life that he experienced a paradigm shift regarding the fundamental utility of capital. He realized that the ultimate purpose of accumulating wealth is not to buy luxury goods.
The purpose of money is to purchase freedom.
It is the ultimate tool for buying back your own time.
To help the reader avoid the decades of financial anxiety he endured, he systematically dismantles what he calls the 10 lies we are told about money. These are deep cultural scripts. Let's look at lie number 1. Money is the root cause of all evil.
The mechanism of this lie confuses the tool with the operator. Money is an inanimate medium of exchange. It has no moral compass.
Warikoo argues that it's our emotional attachment to money, our greed, our hoarding, our tying of self-worth to a bank balance that breeds evil behavior.
Lie number 2 is a corollary to that. Be wary of the rich because they must have done something immoral to get there.
He points out the statistical fallacy here. For every corrupt billionaire making headlines, there are thousands of quiet, wealthy individuals who built businesses that provide immense value, who treat their employees with deep respect, and who fund philanthropic causes.
Then he tackles the financial mechanics directly with lie number 3. Fixed deposits are the safest and best investment.
This is deeply ingrained in Indian middle-class culture and honestly in conservative financial planning globally. The illusion of the perfectly safe savings account. Why is it a lie?
It comes down to the silent mechanism of inflation. If you put your money in a fixed deposit or a traditional savings account, the bank might guarantee you a return of, say, 4% a year. On paper, you are richer.
Right, the number went up.
But if the actual inflation rate, the rising cost of groceries, housing, and energy is 6%, your purchasing power is actually shrinking by 2% every year.
You are safely and predictably losing your wealth.
It is the financial equivalent of bleeding to death from 1,000 tiny paper cuts.
And then there's lie number 7, which touches on the psychology of consumer debt. Taking loans and maxing out credit cards is a sign of your confidence in your future earning potential.
This is a toxic rationalization used to justify living beyond one's means. It brings up a profound paradox that Warikoo highlights regarding how different economic classes interact with debt.
Let's use the analogy of the treadmill versus the escalator. If you are operating as a traditional employee, spending exactly what you earn on lifestyle expenses, you are running on a treadmill. You have to expend continuous energy just to maintain your position.
Right.
But if you take your capital and buy asset stocks, real estate, a business in the door, you are building an escalator. You step onto it, and the underlying mechanics carry you upward even while you sleep.
That's a great way to visualize it.
So, explain the paradox Warikoo presents. He says that financially smart people take loans to save money, while financially weak people take loans to spend money. How does borrowing money actually save you money?
The difference lies entirely in the nature of the asset being acquired, which introduces the concept of leverage. Financially wealthy individuals utilize debt to purchase appreciating cash-flowing assets.
Like what?
For example, they might take out a massive loan at 5% interest to buy an apartment building that generates a 10% yield in rental income. The asset itself generates the cash to pay off the bank's interest, and the investor pockets the difference, all while the building appreciates in value.
They're using other people's money to multiply their own wealth.
So the debt is working for them.
Exactly. On the flip side, financially uneducated individuals take out high-interest personal loans or credit card debt to purchase depreciating liabilities.
They borrow money at 20% interest to buy a luxury car that loses 10% of its value the moment they drive it off the lot.
Or to fund a lavish vacation that generates zero financial return. They are actively draining their future net worth to finance an illusion of current wealth.
He provides a very practical list of specific money mistakes to avoid, and the first one is brutal: treating your time as free.
Oh, this is so common. He uses the example of someone spending 4 hours on public transit to travel across the city just to save a few dollars on a purchase.
That ignores the mechanism of opportunity cost. If your time is worth $20 an hour, you just spent $80 worth of time to save $10.
You're stepping over dollars to pick up dimes because you haven't assigned a baseline value to your own existence.
He also warns heavily against investing out of FOMO, the fear of missing out.
You see your neighbor making money in crypto or a coworker bragging about a specific tech stock, and you blindly throw your money in at the peak of the hype cycle.
He says, everyone is not you. Your investment strategy must be dictated by your specific risk tolerance and your specific timeline, not the water cooler gossip.
And that ties into the fallacy of trying to time the market. Amateurs constantly wait for the market to crash so they can buy at the absolute bottom or hold out to sell at the absolute peak.
Warikoo points out that nobody, not even the most sophisticated hedge fund algorithms, can consistently predict those inflection points.
The only mathematically proven strategy for the average person is consistent, robotic investing over a massive time horizon, allowing the mechanism of compound interest to do the heavy lifting over decades.
But he does offer a caveat about risk. He argues that your 20s are the exact time you should be taking massive asymmetrical risks.
Because you don't have a mortgage, you likely don't have dependents, and most importantly, you have 4 decades of earning potential ahead of you to recover if you go to zero.
Putting your money into ultra-conservative, low-yield savings accounts in your 20s is a waste of your most valuable asset: time.
For listeners who want to dive deeper into this specific philosophy, Warikoo cites a few foundational texts and thinkers. He heavily recommends Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki for understanding the difference between assets and liabilities.
The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel for understanding the behavioral aspects of wealth.
And The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham for the mechanics of value investing. He also points to thinkers like Naval Ravikant, who writes extensively on the intersection of wealth creation and personal peace.
Which brings us to the ultimate truth about capital. Use your money to earn your freedom. Do not give up your freedom to earn money.
And this transitions us seamlessly into the most vital pillar of a fulfilling life. Because you can have absolute financial freedom, you can have a perfectly optimized calendar, but if your personal relationships are a toxic wasteland, your daily experience of life will be miserable.
Warikoo leans on the philosophy presented in the book The Courage to be Disliked, which posits a radical idea. All problems, at their core, are interpersonal problems.
Every stressor eventually traces back to how we relate to another human being.
And Warikoo starts his exploration of relationships by holding up a very uncomfortable mirror to the reader.
He asks 3 piercing questions. Would you genuinely want to be friends with your own self? Would you marry yourself? Would you want to work for yourself as your own boss?
Most people instinctively flinch at those questions because deep down they know they are emotionally volatile, hypercritical, or unreliable.
The mechanism he's exposing here is projection. How we treat the people around us is a direct, unvarnished reflection of our internal landscape.
He argues it is psychologically impossible for a deeply secure, self-loving person to act like a bigoted, cruel bully.
We only drag others down when we're desperately trying to elevate our own sunken self-worth.
To fix the external relationships, you have to excavate the internal foundation, which almost always leads back to family trauma.
He writes that the only significant variable we do not get to choose in life is the family we are born into, yet it dictates almost our entire initial worldview.
Some people view their generational trauma as an inescapable fate. They adopt the identity of a victim and let the tragedy define them.
But Warikoo insists that active healing is not an optional luxury. It's a biological and psychological necessity.
Hey, we cannot change the history of what happened to us in our childhood, but we have total agency over how we process and heal from it as adults.
He shares some incredibly poignant anecdotes about his own parents, illustrating how we absorb behavioral algorithms from our environment.
His father, whom he calls Pupper, struggled with perpetual financial failure. Decades of taking business risks that simply didn't pan out, living under a mountain of debt.
But the defining trait young Ankur observed wasn't the failure. It was the mechanism of his father's resilience. No matter how bad the financial news was the night before, his father woke up the next morning, put on his suit, and went back to work.
The lesson there isn't about business strategy, it's about the raw dignity of showing up.
And there's another detail about his father that's just beautiful in its vulnerability. His father would carry a small book of Kashmiri songs to every extended family gathering.
He wasn't aggressively trying to perform, but he carried it, hoping that someone might ask him to sing, because he genuinely believed he had a good voice.
Warikoo extracted a profound truth from that quirk. If you do not believe in yourself, no one else will.
Then there is his mother, Ma. He describes her ultimate superpower as radical empathy.
Whenever Ankur would come home furious about a conflict with a friend or a teacher, his mother wouldn't validate his anger.
Instead, she would ask a circuit-breaking question. What would they be thinking?
That simple question forces the ego to step aside. It trains a young mind to view a conflict not as a personal attack, but as a collision of different perspectives.
She also gave him a fascinating definition of mastery. She told him that perfection isn't about sweating and bleeding to show everyone how hard you are working.
Perfection is when you have practiced a skill so deeply that you execute it with effortless finesse, leaving the audience amazed, while to you, it just feels like breathing.
He takes these generational lessons and distills them into letters he writes for his own children, Vidur and Uzma.
He implores them to define their own metrics for success, actively warning them against adopting society's templates. He tells his daughter never to forget her roots.
And there is a beautiful section addressed to his son, Vidur, who went through phases of wanting to be a soldier, then a watchman, then a robotics engineer, and then an artist.
Warikoo writes that he hopes Vidur becomes all of those things. He asks, why become only one thing in our life? We have only one.
That is a direct challenge to the modern industrial complex that demands hyper-specialization.
We are biologically wired for novelty and diverse experiences. Yet we're pressured to pick a single job title at age 18 and stick with it until retirement.
Navigating all these relationships inevitably brings up conflict, and Warikoo offers a piece of advice that sounds like a superpower if you can master it.
Oh, this one is great.
Do not show up for every argument you are invited to.
It's a brilliant life hack. But let's analyze the mechanics of this in the real world. If a colleague insults your work, or a family member makes a passive-aggressive comment, how do you actually implement this without repressing your feelings?
Right.
Earlier, we established that avoiding difficult conversations creates toxic emotional debt. How do we distinguish between avoiding conflict out of cowardice versus declining the invitation to protect our peace?
It requires analyzing the intent and the potential output of the conflict. Warikoo notes that arguments are energetic feedback loops. They thrive entirely on inputs.
If someone is engaging you purely to impose their worldview on you, or if they are initiating a bad faith argument just to stroke their own ego, your silence is the most devastating input you can provide.
Engaging with a troll, whether online or at the Thanksgiving dinner table, is a waste of your finite energy. In that scenario, walking away is protecting your peace.
But what if it's not a troll?
If the conflict involves a violation of your core boundaries, or if the relationship is vital to your life and avoiding the issue will breed silent resentment, then walking away is an act of cowardice that generates emotional debt.
He provides a great heuristic for this. You must distinguish between people who are simply telling you that you are wrong to assert dominance, and people who are trying to help you see where you are wrong to facilitate your growth.
You decline the invitation from the former. You lean into the discomfort with the latter.
And when you inevitably get hurt, his perspective on holding grudges completely flips the script. We often think holding a grudge is a way of punishing the other person.
Warikoo points out that holding a grudge is an incredibly energy-intensive process.
If someone breaks your trust, and you decide to trade your daily peace of mind to plot revenge, you are actively participating in your own destruction.
The person hurt you once. By replaying the scenario in your head every day, you are hurting yourself 1,000 times over.
This connects deeply to his differentiation between sympathy and empathy. Sympathy is fundamentally rooted in pity.
It is an elevated position where you look down at someone's struggle and feel bad for them, which subtly reinforces your own superiority.
Empathy requires descending into the trench with them. It means looking at the crushing weight they're carrying and acknowledging that, given their circumstances, they're doing an incredibly beautiful job just surviving.
It is about profound respect for the human struggle.
So, we have traversed a massive landscape. We've looked at redefining the metrics of success, the daily architecture of building habits, the necessity of brutal self-awareness, the unvarnished realities of leadership, the mechanics of leveraging money for freedom, and the deep internal work required to heal our interpersonal webs.
To hold a structure this massive together requires a foundational pillar, a load-bearing beam.
And in the epilogue of the book, Warikoo reveals what that load-bearing beam is for him. He confesses his ultimate superpower. It is not his charisma on camera, it's not his ability to read a balance sheet, and it's not his networking skills.
His ultimate superpower is his dictatorial relationship with time.
He is fanatical about his calendar. He schedules absolutely everything. He schedules his workouts, his content shoots, his administrative tasks like paying bills, and paradoxically, he strictly schedules his free time and his family time.
Now, to a lot of listeners, mapping out every 30-minute block of your existence sounds like a dystopian prison.
But he claims this hyper-rigid structure is the exact mechanism that provides him with absolute unbound freedom. Explain the psychology behind that paradox.
The freedom comes from the complete elimination of decision fatigue. The human brain consumes a massive amount of glucose every time it has to make a choice.
If you wake up and have to decide whether to work out, what to eat, which project to start first, and whether you should call your mother, your willpower is depleted by noon.
By scheduling his entire life, Warikoo has outsourced the burden of decision-making to his past self.
His past self, who planned the week on a Sunday when he was rested and thinking strategically.
Precisely. When Tuesday morning arrives, he doesn't negotiate with his feelings. He simply executes the calendar.
And importantly, he isn't scheduling misery. He is scheduling his deepest values.
If he values health, the gym is on the calendar. If he values his daughter, playtime is on the calendar.
The rigid structure ensures that his actual daily actions align perfectly with his stated life priorities. The structure is the armor that protects his values from the chaos of daily urgencies.
Okay, but let's anchor this back to reality for the listener. What if the person listening to this has ADHD?
Right.
What if they operate in a state of creative chaos, and the mere thought of color-coding a digital calendar makes them want to break their computer?
If they are biologically or psychologically incapable of adopting Warikoo's superpower of hyperorganization, how do they find the structural beam to hold up their own life during a storm?
Warikoo addresses this reality directly. He emphasizes that your superpower does not have to be a sterile corporate productivity hack. Your tentpole is simply the innate trait that emerges when everything else goes wrong.
For some, it might be relentless grinding discipline. But for others, it might be a genuinely disarming sense of humor that diffuses tension.
It might be a rebellious, anti-authoritarian nature that refuses to accept the status quo. It could be physical athleticism or an extraordinary capacity for empathy.
It is about identifying the specific weapon you already possess.
Exactly. The goal of this entire framework is not to clone Ankur Warikoo's personality or his calendar.
The goal is to audit your own life. Identify the trait that has historically kept you alive during your darkest moments, and then consciously, intentionally forge that trait into your daily armor as you walk out into the world.
You already possess the superpower. You just have to stop taking it for granted.
The powerful things that lie within us are often the easiest to overlook. Let's take a breath and survey the territory we have covered in this deep dive.
We started by tearing down the exhausting, shifting goalposts of societal success.
Learning to embrace the failure resume not as an excuse for mediocrity, but as empirical proof that we are actually in the arena.
We moved away from the hollow pursuit of targets, focusing instead on the compounding power of identity-based habits, including the biological necessity of rest.
We explored the mechanics of self-awareness, realizing that the worst-case scenario is rarely fatal, and that movement is always superior to stagnation.
We unpacked the uncomfortable realities of building a business, where a leader's intent will always trump their raw capability in a crisis.
We mathematically deconstructed the lies we are told about capital, redefining money away from status symbols and toward the ultimate goal of buying back our time through the leverage of assets.
And we waded into the heavy waters of our relationships, confronting the reality that our external conflicts are just projections of our internal emotional debt, and that healing is a daily, active choice.
It is a comprehensive operating system. But an operating system is useless if it is never booted up. It requires the courage to actually deploy it in the messy reality of your daily life.
Which brings us to the final thought I want to leave you with today.
We have spent all this time analyzing someone else's failures and philosophies. Now, I want you to turn the lens entirely on yourself. Think about the trajectory of your own life right now.
If you were forced to sit down at a desk tonight and write out your own failure resume, what would it look like?
Would it be a long, terrifying list of rejections, heartbreaks, and miscalculations that proves you are actively taking risks and trying to expand your world? Or is it suspiciously short?
Is it brief because you've spent the last decade playing it so incredibly safe, terrified of the world's judgment that you haven't actually tried anything new?
If your failure resume is blank, you aren't winning the game. You are just hiding in the locker room. Think about what specific, terrifying failure you need to go out and collect tomorrow. Go out there and earn a scar. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.